54-year-old head of WWF, Vince McMahon, took a spill from the top rope, sitting on Bubba's shoulders, right to the floor. And I can only imagine how Bubba and Road Dogg felt seeing their boss fall over like that. Being like, oh, did I do that? St. Louis is going crazy. It's Tales from the Attitude Era. How's it going? It's Rob Pasbani from thestunner.com, joined as always by former WWE writer Tommy Blacha. Tommy, welcome back to the show. And we're reviewing the Raw from June 12th, 2000.
The Kiel Center.
St. Louis, Missouri. Always a hot town. At least definitely during this era. This was like a pay-per-view quality crowd. And you gave him a great show to enjoy, I think.
Yeah, it was interesting. I really thought this show on paper had a possibility. Well, like they always do. It's always a high wire act. There's a possibility of them going like. But again, you know, I always, when rewatching these, have to comment that like everyone's so over and The Rock's so over. You could like. You could write whatever on a piece of paper and it'd just be like, oh, it's unbelievable. You know what I mean? Like, Hunter's got a 3-foot nose. You know, someone could say that and like, well, whatever. But he says it, you just see people in the rafters. 3-foot nose, amazing. You know, like it's just, you know, and you know, this was a scramble show with a lot of convoluted shit on paper, and it again, you sat there in amazement and just like, oh my god, the whole show just got over like crazy. Some things went long, and then like, oh, some matches are short. Like, look at the audience. Oh, doesn't matter. You know,
the audience ate it up. Yeah, like there were definitely some screw ups, but it was masked by how hot the crowd was. They were hanging from the rafters, as Gorilla Monsoon would say.
Yeah, you know, and part of it was just the scheduling. You always notice traditionally in WWF back in the day, WWE, the more things were getting like lower, that's when they'll go internationally or do things like that. But so a lot of these towns were really, even though there was house shows, they were waiting for a Raw or a SmackDown, and I don't think St. Louis had one in, you know, quite a long time. So some of these huge.
I want to say this is the first time since we've started doing the show that a TV taping has been in St. Louis. I believe there's been a pay-per-view, but not a TV taping.
I guess, yeah. So, but nonetheless, a rare thing in St. Louis, as we know, like one of those crazy wrestling towns, Harley race, you know,
yes,
country.
Was he backstage? Did you happen to you ever meet him?
No, I didn't meet him.
Take the money, $100,000, kabuki.
Yeah,
my favorite promo.
Actually, it was $10,000.
Oh, $10,000. I've adjusted
for anyone who can remove Ric Flair from my life. Yeah, incredible.
Well, let's talk about the show. It's a good show. Honestly, I think this is the best TV show in like months, I feel, in terms of just hotness. Like this kind of reminds me of the shows at the start of the year where you were talking about how like you didn't even have to do much and the crowd just ate it all up. Like I feel that died down a little bit in the last two, like post WrestleMania, maybe there was a little bit of some of the shine wore off, but this was a very shiny episode.
Yeah, it's an odd thing when you really go back and look at it. It's almost like I remember, you know, working on Conan O'Brien shows. Sometimes it'd be like, that was a big weird element, as it is with like stand-up comedy a lot. Like, oh, the crowd. You don't want to blame the crowd, but sometimes like, oh, this material was just as good. That crowd just was awful. You know what I mean? Or just, it didn't work. And then the other things, oh, this crowd was so hot. Like, you know, it just, you know, didn't matter. I remember one time on Conan, there just happened to be like 100 yeshiva students for some reason in the line and it just kind of like was a weird crowd, you know, and it was just like, what's going on with this show? And that you know, you get that feedback loop of badness or goodness, you know, with the audience. And, you know, so really, as we talk about like booking and this and decisions, like it's a big part of the element is like the crowd, and that makes it electric. And then, and after it also makes it's like a winning team, like, oh, a bunch of fuck ups. Oh, we won the game, like a winning streak. And after you're like, yeah, all these things were not so great, but like, oh, the place was electric. Everyone's happy. You know what I mean? And ratings are huge. And that just is a salve that just soothes every problem. And then, once it starts to be, oh, that's a bad crowd, then finger pointing, well, this was bad and that was bad. It's still that simple element. It still rules. So there you have it.
Yeah. And to your point, now that I'm thinking about it, the last few weeks of television have been in the Northeast at places that you had been to like 2 months prior, so like New Haven and, like Rochester, Buffalo. Like you said, you do those Northeast loops enough where you're right. It's probably a lot of the same people coming back because they had such a great time. And also at this point in time, I feel ticket prices were reasonable where for like $40 you can get a decent seat. Yeah. So you could go a few times a year and then like the shine does wear off the second or third time you see Rikishi dance or whatever gimmicks you guys are doing nowadays.
Yeah, you're not wrong. And that Northeast loop was obviously, for production and everything, so much easier for lots of reasons. But no, you're absolutely right, and it's a big factor. And we always like you'd hit Chicago, Detroit, they're always huge, and this was like, I think absolutely you could tell like St. Louis was, clamoring for a show, and they got it.
No, this was great. This was a great show. I really enjoyed watching it. This is one of those shows that it didn't feel like work. Not that it ever really feels like work.
Right.
But, but like sometimes I notice sometimes with SmackDowns, it's like, all right. But this one, I was just like, what's going to happen next? I was hooked as a viewer. Jim Ross with a wonderful line to kick off the show. Oh, before we do that, I want to mention sellout crowd, 14,647 paid, $436,000. That's a nice gate. Nice piece of business.
Sure. And the brilliance of it, like that, there's your production overhead, live gate, that regular TV shows or whatever don't have. Like, oh, we're already in the black, in a sense. And this isn't even counting the TV money and what have you. So that's why USA Network, whoever, just said, like, leave them alone. And also they couldn't track it because you're like, it's not like we're going to stop by the set, or whatever. It's not a static thing. So the brilliance of wrestling.
Yeah, USA executives, Barry Diller doesn't want to fly out to St. Louis.
Right. There's usually the 2 times he was at things that I saw, it was like for some reason he happened to be somewhere or whatever, and then he just would be like, ooh. Well, also he was very, look at all the wrestlers. We'll let you figure that one out for yourself, folks.
Yeah, do a little Googling. You'll figure it out. I love this line from JR to start the show. The 3 most destructive forces in the WWF are on a collision course. The Rock, Undertaker, and Kane are all here.
Yep.
A great way to set up the show. Of course, when we last left the 3 of them, The Rock gave both guys a chair shot, one accidentally, one very intentionally. And The Rock's music kicks off the show. And as we're saying, big pop for The Rock. The crowd was hot. There was even a big pop for him going, finally, The Rock has come back. Like, they just went nuts.
Yeah. Well, it works. It would just thematically what we were talking about. Hasn't been a show in St. Louis for a time. So that really makes that an elevated catchphrase, when someone hasn't been there for a while. And that final, it's such a good one. They're just ready to explode. Yeah,
absolutely. And then, and like you were mentioning briefly at the top of the show, I'm kind of getting a little eye rolly with some of the Rock's humor, namely at how I feel like he's using Stephanie as a slut, as a bit of a crutch. It's kind of like a punchline crutch. So I like
slut crutch. Here. Are you claiming a slut crutch?
So I like here that the joke was actually on Triple H and not Stephanie, who he's actually feuding with. He's not going to get into the ring with Stephanie, as far as I know.
Right.
So The Rock keeps hearing come Monday night, The Rock is going to get his, whether it be from Undertaker, from Kane, from DX. Well, it's Monday night. Undertaker, bring your American badass. Kane, bring your 7-foot ass. And Triple H, bring your 3-foot nose. Just bring it. Crowd loved this. I loved it. I definitely did a loud exhale. What?
Yeah.
And then Kane's music hits. He comes out. Suddenly, his voice is feeling a little better because he goes, just bring it, huh? Well, consider it brought. Which is just corny enough for me to love it. Undertaker then comes out. The three of them have a stare down. And then the Raw theme hits. And everyone's like, what? What's this? And it's Linda McMahon. Yep. Mega baby face Linda McMahon coming down the aisle. And with her with her trademark charisma, she goes, wait just 1 minute. What are you men trying to do? You are out here ready to tear each other limb from limb. The McMahon-Helmsley faction are just sitting back here laughing at you guys.
You're despicable. Listen to this.
You've got to be united. You need to join forces. And even with her charisma void delivery, the crowd popped for that. Yeah, sure. Join forces.
Well,
and by the way, go ahead.
I'm going to defend it again. As always, just the thing that I love about pro wrestling and the oddness of this situation for me always was like, that's really Vince's wife. That's really Janet Stephanie's mom. That's just odd. You know what I mean? And this mix that is pro wrestling that that you can fictionalize all kinds of stuff. Things fall flat a lot, and it's like, obviously, oh, that's right, Kane is the Undertaker's brother. Whatever. That doesn't fucking matter. Or when it's brought up late sometimes, like, oh, right, he was a brother who this, that, and the other thing happened in the backstory. No one gives a shit. In fact, sometimes it just gets in the way, like, just move past that. They're just who they are or whatever. And also sometimes when you have just like charisma meets charisma and like seething, I just like that it breaks up with this literally actual, like, people, how powerful is she? Well, she is on paper, the CEO, whatever, comes out with this flat delivery. It just somehow, I don't know, it works, because sometimes you get diminishing returns, as you sound with like, and now here comes another charismatic fictional character. I don't know. So
I mean, it definitely worked in that the crowd reacted, sure, but to me, it's just she sticks out like a sore thumb. Sure. I get what you're saying. Yeah. I don't know if it's appealing though. It's like, it's comical to me. I mean, she's just a corporate figurehead.
Yeah. But here, part of that's the other part of wrestling is years later, you're like, it bugs me. You'd rather have that. How many things that were attempted at charismatic interruptions or whatever through the decades that were just like, oh yeah, there's that. This still bugs you.
You're right.
Defending it.
That's fair. Everyone called the group the McMahon-Helmsley faction this week, I noticed. Very little regime. The regime is losing out to the faction. I'm surprised also there's no like merch or like logo or anything. Like there's no capitalization on this.
Yeah.
This faction, you know what it was? Going on for like 3 months.
Frankly, like, again, I always talk about the pace of this. The reason there isn't is like someone didn't in a meeting or somewhere say, hey, shouldn't there be a McMahon-Helmsley faction t-shirt? That's right. Make some t-shirts. Never did. That never came up. So it never happened. That's my best explanation.
So then after Linda convinces them to join forces, Vince and the faction come out. The whole McMahon. Well, I guess it's Vince, Shane, Triple H, and Stephanie come out. Vince grabs the mic and he says, Linda, who the hell do you think you are? What are you, Mother Teresa? Maybe you think of yourself as an attractive Janet Reno. I popped so much on that line. Like, why is Janet Reno getting heat from... I mean, I understand she was in the zeitgeist in the moment. I think Will Ferrell was mocking her on SNL.
Oh, she was just let's face it, she was a huge zeitgeist figure. And she frankly looked like a tall, athletic man in drag.
Yeah. I would say she didn't look like a man. I would say she looked androgynous. It was hard to tell.
Very well.
She's the attorney.
Let me get this right. You're denigrating the CEO, Mrs. McMahon, and you're popping for Janet Reno. You're defending Janet Reno.
I'm not defending. Well, if Janet Reno cut a promo, I would fucking critique that as well. To be fair, they have similar levels of charisma. I feel like Janet Reno's speech style isn't too far off from Linda McMahon's.
There you go.
She goes, all you are is a meddlesome, castrating shrew of a wife. At one point, he mentioned that she was in Delaware earlier in the day which is interesting that he mentioned that because in the real world, in the shoot world, there's an active lawsuit, as we've been talking about with the USA Network, and that's actually going on right now. So she left the lawsuit to come and cut that fiery promo.
Yeah.
In St. Louis.
See, that's what I love, this weird smart mark intrigue that's just so odd. Like, where else would something like this happen? Like, well, she's, I can see a smart mark explaining to someone like, yeah, why is she out here? She's charismaless. Well, Delaware, what is that? Well, actually, there is that's real, but she's here. Just that oddness is so wonderful to me.
Yeah. And also she is the future Secretary of Education. So there
you go.
Janet Reno didn't dismantle the school system, did she? Anyway, I want to see Janet Reno and Linda McMahon in a steel cage.
Yeah, that's right. Some promos. What did you do for the schools? What did you do about Waco?
What did you do about all those mergers? The crowd, by the way, could not give about this promo from Vince. Throughout the whole promo, they were chanting, slut at Stephanie, Shane's a pussy, asshole. And to his credit, Vince was trying to get them back. Like anytime they were there, you'd be like, Shane is most certainly not that, but I'll tell you what, we're blah, 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 and then they just didn't give. They're like, whatever, get to it.
And it all works so great because the crowd is so hot, it doesn't even matter, that like, they're not letting me get to the point. It's almost like a comedian being like, oh, they didn't even hear that punchline because they were laughing so loud. They didn't even get it. Doesn't matter.
Right. And then Linda says, well, these three are joining forces in a 6-man tag at King of the Ring against Triple H.
Wasn't that bad,
Shane,
but go on.
And Vince McMahon. Okay, these three are joining forces in a 6-man tag at King of the Ring. Again, something like that.
But doesn't it invoke, I'm going to keep defending her every time you shit on her. I'm sorry. I don't know why.
Sure.
But doesn't it invoke, very old school, but the idea of a mom or a school teacher that has that cadence in a position of authority that you have to be on the other side.
She definitely is coming across as the mom of the WWF. Also, I don't know, like it's very funny because she is kind of like telling Undertaker to eat his vegetables. Like, now don't fight with The Rock and Kane. Sure, you need to get along. Right. Why did you end up going with the 6-man tag for King of the Ring? Is it because the actual King of the Ring tournament is the main event and you didn't want to give away another title match on pay-per-view? What was the idea behind this? Do you remember?
Exactly. Well, it was, frankly, 3 of the most destructive forces on a collision course. And at the end of the show, they're still on that collision course. They sort of collided in a match that protected that, anything definitive happening and still moving on while giving everyone like this big, hey, and like I said, I thought like, ooh, this could go south, but kind of just, delaying, stretching it out. Yeah. On paper, this seems kind of a weak main event, but when it was announced, it did seem kind of interesting. There is a little intrigue to me on
Vince being in the ring and getting beat up by Undertaker, Kane, and Rock. That's the selling point to me a little bit.
And it's a big convoluted mess, but what's going to come out of it? At the same time, you're like, well, we don't want to give anything away. And yet you have to have them interact, or that'd be just like, oh, boo. You know what I mean? So this was a way to, do that.
Yeah, very interesting. And now I think it also really puts pressure on the King of the Ring tournament itself to deliver, because you need like a good I guess you don't. This isn't the era of the world.
The pressure's always there. The pressure.
Yeah.
Look at the pressure gauge, Pasbani. It's it's always in the red.
Also, though, I do think there is something to be said that we are currently in what I would refer to as the off season. Like this definitely feels like you said, like you're stretching stuff out, you're delaying stuff. Things are moving a little slow on the show as well. June always, I feel, with WWF forever felt like a slow period.
Could be.
It kicks back up for SummerSlam. I feel like that's when, like in my head, you could kind of see how you're setting. You already have some matches for SummerSlam. Like you're keeping the Hardys, Edge and Christian, and the Dudleys away from each other, because you want to have that match at SummerSlam. You're not having a world title match. The hardcore title is in this weird limbo with Gerald Brisco, but we'll talk about it. So it's interesting. Or that's just my observation. I don't know.
Could be.
So Linda books this match. It's Undertaker, Kane, and The Rock against Triple H, Shane, and Vince McMahon. Vince goes, we accept. You think you're going to come out here and embarrass me? I don't think so. Triple H and Shane look incredible. Like, how could you accept this? What are you doing? Yeah. And then Linda goes, how about tonight, Triple H defend the title against an opponent of my choosing? Vince accepts on behalf of Triple H, even though it's not fair. Triple H, again, upset. And he says, that's not fair. And Linda goes, well, if that's not fair, you're not going to like this either. There's another championship that needs to be defended. Yours, Stephanie, versus Lita. And if any member of the faction interferes at all, you will be disqualified and Lita awarded the championship.
Ooh.
I like this. I like that they're doing this chase with Lita, chasing Stephanie. You're really kind of getting Lita over with it.
And it's mom disciplining everyone.
Yeah.
And also, how do you get, at a certain point, how do you get babyface revenge? If, that's another important thing that she does, regardless of her charisma-less thing. It's like, how do you, like, oh, they control everything. Every once in a while, here comes mom, and really, I think it works great because it plays on Vince being like, what? There's always that, like, well, why would they do that? Oh, his massive ego, and he's nuts. And, that's why Triple H and Shane, well, what? How could you accept to this? Because she's the wife and she poked him. And so it all works very well, I think.
Yeah. And Vince quips, okay, I hope you're happy, little Miss CEO. And then Linda goes, I don't play CEO. I am CEO. And as CEO, I make this one final announcement. Tonight, Shane McMahon will see action, and also Vince McMahon will see action, teaming up against the Dudley Boys. Vince immediately does his signature gulp.
Yep.
Which I always pop for.
Yeah, it's incredible.
And he goes, yeah, it's the best. And he goes, Linda goes, it's not just any tag team match. And the crowd already knows what's coming. It's a tables match. Ah!
Yeah.
This is an excitingly booked show. On paper, this seems stronger than the pay-per-view. Backstage, after the break, Linda is getting into a limo and she's stopped by Triple H and Stephanie. Triple H is like overly nice because, he wants to find out who his opponent is, because Triple H is going to be facing an opponent of Linda's choosing. And Linda says, your sweet talking works on my daughter, but not on me. Better get ready. To Stephanie, she says, your match is next. And then she drives off.
Nice.
They're upset.
Calls her mom too, isn't he? That's pretty good.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. To your point, I do like, because the deck is so stacked against the faces all the time with Vince and Shane booking these matches. I do like that there is someone on the babyface side. But if you really stop and think about it, why isn't she there every week? Like, why is she letting Vince get away with it every weekend? Just this week decided to show up and do something.
Rob Pasbani doesn't know what it takes to be the CEO of a multi-million-dollar corporation. And as you just said, she was just in Delaware dealing with this stuff. Do you think that she has time to just do that?
That's fair. Well, this is her company, though. She should have time.
Oh, do you think there was some smart mark there in the audience? Like, well, why isn't she there every week?
Yeah, where's
Shut
Linda?
up! Shut up and hold up your sign. Here comes The Rock. Young Rob Pasbani wants to know why Linda isn't there every week.
Then we have a King of the Ring qualifying match. Dean Malenko comes out with what Jim Ross referred to as some of Godfather's ladies. I love that it's just canon that Malenko is just with Godfather now, and he has lady. I guess Godfather wasn't on the main show this week, so they had hired these ladies, so they brought him out with Malenko. They didn't serve any purpose other than a little bit of eye candy. And to me, I guess this shows how bland Vince must think Dean Malenko is. When he's just sent 2 random women out with him. That'll get him over.
Yeah. Well, in fairness, it is continuing the storyline that wasn't really too well developed that Dean Malenko, so.
But anyway, I was so excited to watch this match. I was really pumped. Like these two, Ross pointed out that they actually started together and trained together in Florida. And you could tell they've worked together a million times before because they did such a fun wrestling exchange to start the match. I was genuinely upset that this match only went like 3 or 4 minutes because I could have watched them go for like 15 minutes. It was, I wrote in 2 minutes, they showed more mat wrestling than in the last 6 months of WWE.
Yeah.
Like it was so cool to see. It was a short match. Road Dogg smacks Malenko behind the ref's back, and then X-Pac hits the X Factor for a quick win. X-Pac advances in the tournament.
And I think this being a Raw, that was probably one of those, again, shows how professional these guys are. Because there was long matches pretty much in this episode, but I think that was one that was like, okay, you got 6 minutes. And on the way out, okay, you got 4 minutes. It happens all the time.
So that you're right. And I could kind of sense that because it felt like they just went to the finish immediately. Yeah. But this was fun while it lasted. Backstage, Stephanie is panicking about her match with Triple H. She says that she doesn't know what she's going to do. She asks Triple H and he says he doesn't know. Really shows that the heels might be effed up this week. Yes. Stephanie comes out after the break. She enters to Triple H's theme. She doesn't even have her own theme yet. Her eventual song by Lil' Kim is one of my favorites, about the queendom where the kings bow down. I like that. But regardless, she gets huge heat. After the song fades down, she just raises the belt over her head and everyone just boo.
Yep. She's done her job.
She grabs the mic and says, for the record, this is not fair. Boo! For 74 glorious days, I have been your champion. I have carried this title with dignity, honor, and pride. And despite that filthy name you call me, I know deep down I have your support. You want me to retain. I love... this is one of my favorite gimmicks for a heel champion to do, and also one of my least favorite things for a male champion to do is to brag about how many days you've been champion, because in wrestling, it doesn't matter how many days. Like, it's not like you're defending it every day. It should be like how many successful defenses you've had, if anything, if you're going to use that brag. But, she's had one title match in 74 days.
Right.
Like last week on SmackDown. So it's like, there is no dignity or honor there, which is why, to be clear, it works for her as a heel.
Right.
But conversely, it's always funny to me when a face does this promo. It's like
No, well, yeah, and even to even always break it down, there's always something about 16-time world. You know, the numbers get ridiculous, and you're like, well, that means they lost it 16 times. You know, I always thought that.
Yeah.
Like, what about Bob Backlund? He only had, I think, one title reign, but it was 5 years long. Goodness gracious, you know. So, isn't that more impressive than losing it 6 times over 5 years? Whatever. This is a real deep dive, super smart Mark sidebar. But yeah.
Lita comes out and she's just transformed into her full Team Extreme out. And when I say transformed, I'm sure this is how she actually dresses, you know. This isn't like, but she's wearing the Jinkos. She has like the see-through netted top, the whale tail, as we've discussed last week.
Yep.
She looks great. She's ready for prime time.
90s. Oh, it's 2000, but it's still 90s.
Turn of the century. Very turn of the. And very quickly, Stephanie gets knocked down to the outside of the ring, and she feigns an injury, like she had twisted her ankle or something. Ref goes out of the ring. Her knee, excuse me. Ref goes out and checks on her.
Who's the ref?
Is it Earl Hebner or is it
Teddy Long?
Yoda? Oh, Teddy Long. Oh, I missed it.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
You can't tell the difference between Earl Hebner and Teddy Long? What's going on with you?
What's the difference between them?
Well, one's black man, one's a white man for
okay.
Just
so one has hair and one doesn't.
Yeah.
I thought you could go that way. Kurt Angle runs out and he sneaks behind the ref and gives Lita the Olympic slam.
Yep.
And then suddenly Stephanie is cured and she rushes in the ring, gets the quick pinfall. And then I love this 1 minute of like, Kurt Angle gets in the ring. He celebrates with Stephanie and he gives her a hug, and then he quickly backs off like, oh, I don't want anyone to think anything of this. And then they hug again. And first you see a shot of Triple H backstage, and he's happy that Stephanie won. Then they go back to the celebration and they keep celebrating and hugging and celebrating and hugging. Yeah. And then you cut back to Triple H and suddenly he's not so happy. He's like, what the f- is that guy doing with my wife? You know, right. That kind of thing. But very subtly. I really loved how this played. And I was upset that like, wait, how did we drop this angle for like 3 months? This is the best thing.
Oh, I agree. In fact, I think I told you one of my like favorite things that helped even launch this was I can't remember. It was like subtle, but they were walking down a hallway. It was Kurt and Stephanie. And they kind of, you know, that thing where you like bump into each other and like, oh, and you go left and then I go right and you go left. And we were doing a thing and I was like, oh, that's funny. Keep doing that. And it kind of was like naturally like, oh, well, we're, you know, we don't know which way to get around each other in the hallway. And it kind of sparked a natural sort of thing like, oh, yeah, she's got that started it. I think, frankly, just, you know, it's more like, is there room for stuff? And yeah, things just fall to the wayside. And I think part of it was like Kurt's just rise to being so big. I don't know if it got in the way or, you know what I mean? But they they could have kept it away or just always kept it alive in subtler ways and never have to pay it off or whatever. But yeah, I agree. But, you know, it's an embarrassment of riches, just another, you know, so many things were working. But I agree. This is always funny.
Yeah, no, this was my favorite angle of the year. And I'm sure part of the reason why it didn't really go too far was I feel like Triple H probably put the kibosh on it. But
I don't think so. No, it's just too much stuff going on, you know, too much good stuff going on.
Well, I do think they eventually have a match, I believe in September, but we'll get to it. We'll get to it, I guess.
But also, I think I remember this being like some confusion over like, hug him. We got to get the shot of Triple H. He's mad. Even though it worked out perfectly, I don't think it was exactly supposed to be timed like that. Like, hug, stop hugging. And it just kind of like serendipity of it working out so great. If I remember correctly, there may have been like a IFP moment. Tell him to hug again. We didn't, or whatever. So it just.
Oh, I see.
But it worked great.
Yeah, it came out really, really good. I really liked it because it really got across what you were trying to do without, like, I feel like sometimes the wink is so obvious in wrestling that it becomes over the top. But this was surprisingly subtle and subdued. And I think that's why it really worked, you know? Also because Kurt is like this goody two shoes guy too. And like, he's like, oh, I hope I'm not being inappropriate. You know, I'm a hero, you know?
I think that just came out of like, just the wonderful madness of being live and it being like quirky like that. Cause I doubt it was like, we're not going to go over the top with the wink. We're going to be subtle. That rarely is the case.
No, it absolutely worked here. And Triple H didn't even have a moment to sulk because as he's like about to be I believe it's Shane McMahon barges in and says, we got to go right now. And he has like a lead pipe or something. And then the entire McMahon-Helmsley regime or faction or faction storm into a locker room. It's actually Kane's locker room. He's all alone. He gets jumped. Kane's back. Kane is seated with his back to the camera, and everyone's like, you know, trapped him. And then somebody, I believe it's Vince, takes off Kane's mask. But again, the back of Kane's head is facing the camera, so we don't see his face. But everyone makes this reaction like, ah. Everyone's in on the psychosis, and then Pat Patterson snaps a photo of Kane without the mask, and then they run off. And that's the segment, which I thought this was a little silly.
Very silly, yeah. Also, I wasn't a fan of this because it's just like it's one of those things that paints you into a corner because you're like, oh, you're kind of re-invoking. Like sometimes you just. Like we've talked before in soap operas, just move past the thing. He's a brother and he was burned and they were raised in, you know, it's like, okay, yeah, that this is now, he's the American badass. They're, you know, just forget re-invoking that stuff sometimes. Cause it's like, what are you going to do ultimately? How are you going to pay this off? Is it going to be a really gruesome burned face? No, it's going to be a half shaved head with a white contact lens and some black scruffy coal dust looking makeup, you know, never really worked in that sense. And then ultimately they're like, let's just go back to that mask. That's cool. You know what I mean? So I none of that worked, but it all didn't matter because Kane is just, you know, the explosion and he's such a big, consistent performer that it kind of went through all that, but not a super fan of this, but
yeah, it was a little corny, but yeah, again, with this crowd, it didn't really matter. After the break, the McMahon-Helmsley faction is celebrating, and Vince says, when the world sees Kane, wait till you see this. Kane is on our side, because if not, we expose him to the world. So tonight, it's going to be Kane versus The Rock. I like that you treat Kane's face like he's a closeted homosexual, and like, we're going to out him if he doesn't beat up The Rock. He's like, no, you know, the world can't know my secret. You know,
that everyone, and also just like, yeah, it's like, well, and then you don't, because well, how do you pay this off? Yeah, I get it. Like Phantom of the Opera. Oh, you know, the intriguing guy with the mask who's, you know, handsome, but underneath it, that all is fine and works. But, you know, in the movie, they rip the mask off. He's gross. But this is like, how's he going to wrestle? How are you going to pull that off? Are you going to do a prosthetic? And yeah, I don't know. It's fraught with problems for me.
Not very thought out. But I mean, hey, you got through the show. Yeah. Then we have Too Cool against T&A. And we get a recap of the unreal angle with Val Venus and Rikishi last week on SmackDown, which looked amazing. And once again, the crowd is super into this. This is like a pay-per-view level reaction to this match. Really hot action. TNA almost stole the win after an interruption from Trish, and there was a belt shot even, and Scotty kicked out. Now, why this was so interesting to me is because this exact same spot happened in the Triple H match later in the show. Right. So I was fascinated. I don't really notice this that often, but like that such a big high spot was repeated in two matches. I guess it's probably on the agents.
Well, sometimes you see a similar double play in a game. Oh my God, just double play like it was in the third inning. How exciting.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah. The match ends after Val Venus runs in, still selling his ribs, but attacks Scotty as he's setting up the worm. The three of them attack Too Cool. Rikishi comes back out, saves them. And this all builds up to Rikishi teasing, giving Trish another stink face, but they end up getting away.
I just got stunned by you when you said still selling his ribs. I got in a logic loop of wrestling. Like, what do you mean he's selling the jokes that he did on someone, or is there's a fake joke where he's acting hurt, or is he selling ribs like barbecue ribs? It just was such a still selling his ribs. Like, whoa! It took me 3 seconds to get back on track. I got in a wrestling logic loop. Anyways, move on.
Then we had my favorite segment of the night: Vince and Shane McMahon versus the Dudleys. The crowd absolutely saved this match because it was a bit of a train wreck.
Well, yeah, sure, certainly. But what did you expect?
As the Dudleys walk out, Jim Ross with a great line. Ross was having a lot of fun this show. He goes, "Paging the McMahons, your table is ready for you." Because this is, in fact, a tables match. And the McMahons start the match attacking the Dudleys as they get to ringside. It didn't take long for the Dudleys to get the upper hand. They dominate. They do what is eventually called the wazop to Vince, where Bubba holds Vince's legs up as Vince is laying down, and Devon does a headbutt into Vince's crotch. They give the 3D to Shane. The crowd is banana. They're absolutely apoplectic. They're so hot for this. I can't begin to tell you. Like, the crowd loves this, especially.
It's the payoff to that gulp.
You're right. Vince definitely set it up. And when they get the tables, the crowd is like really like they're ready.
Yeah.
They're like a dog about to get meat, like, let's go. So they throw Shane on the table. Shane is laid across the table, and then Bubba sits on the top turnbuckle, and Vince is placed into Bubba, like Bubba's about to powerbomb Vince through the table onto Shane. Right as they're about to do it, Road Dogg and X-Pac run down, and Road Dogg shoves Bubba, and I assume that Bubba slipped, and Vince fell off of Bubba's shoulders, and 54-year-old head of WWF, Vince McMahon, took a spill from the top rope, sitting on Bubba's shoulders, right to the floor. It didn't look too bad, but it was I definitely had to rewind to be like, whoa, what just happened? Like, that's scary. And I could only imagine how Bubba and Road Dogg felt seeing their boss fall over like that, being like, oh, did I do that?
Right.
Like, do you remember seeing that in the back?
Well, the thing about Vince is, like, one thing you don't worry about is hurting him in a thing like that, because he would never sell that, like, oh, I'm hurt, or you hurt me. That maniac would be like, his arm would be bent the wrong way. I'm fine. Good piece of work. So that's weird, but I can only assume, I can't remember exactly, that was Vince's fault somehow. His weight distribution or something.
Yeah. It's just because he's not used to taking bumps.
Yeah.
But then that's not even the worst part. I don't know, but the biggest fumble was then the Road Dogg and X-Pac. They put Devon through a table, so Devon's eliminated, and then they lay Bubba across the table, and they have Tori go to the top rope and do a splash. And Tori's like, what, 125 pounds? So the table doesn't really break. It cracks a little bit. Bubba falls off. And I will say Bubba in like improving did a really good job. He just got up like a house of fire, started punching everyone, and then they all jumped him again, and then they repeated the spot. But before they repeated the spot, the ref already called for the bell as if they had lost. Then Tori does it. She succeeds. That gets a pop. We get through the segment.
Yeah.
And then the DX raises Vince and Shane's hand as the winners. And I want to make it clear, like I as I'm describing this, it sounds like a segment from WCW at the time and like a total train wreck. But through it all, the crowd was so into this that it masked how big of a mess this was.
Well, and also, it's one of those messes that is fine because it's a tables match. You know what I mean? The whole thing, it's Vince and Shane. So even the mistake with Vince is like, as long as it made people go, ooh, you know, and it wasn't one of those things where like the spots have to be timed. And it's, you know, the kiss of death is always like someone being like, oh, you're not in position and you're gonna, you know, and I need to get the pinfall and where are you? And I'm slowly moving something clunky. This was just a chaotic mess where it's fine. We're like, the table didn't break. Just keep hitting me. Do it. Reset it. That all like kind of like works a lot better than, you know, you've seen those things where like, and this timing has to be compared to this. And it's just like, oh, that stinks. It was just chaos, which is the kind of the nature of this match. So yeah, it's fine. And then even backstage, as long as they're going, ooh, and it's a big, you know, he loves mistakes like that, you know, in that sense. And this, as long, like you said, as long as it's exciting, who cares?
Yeah, no, like I said, the crowd was so hot. To the point that they were like quiet in the next match, I felt. We'll talk about it.
Yeah.
Backstage, Triple H, Patterson, and Brisco are egging on Bull Buchanan. Nice little new position for him. They're like, hey, look, it's the Undertaker's bike. And look, he left the keys in the bicycle. Or the bicycle. In the motorcycle.
The motor trike.
The motor trike. Which... is that something people do? I feel like you would take your keys.
Well, not if you're the Undertaker.
I guess that's fair.
Going in front of a bar, who's going to, you know, that's the whole point. Yeah, like, you know, could have just said like, yeah, take it. I don't know.
The keys in the bike. Bull gets on the bike and Triple H, Patterson, and Brisco, they see the Undertaker coming, so they run off. And Bull drives the motorcycle away once he spots the Undertaker.
Rides, not drives.
Oh, drives. Jeez, oh my goodness.
He rides the motorcycle.
He does a little chugga. Bull rides off, and then Undertaker, I love this, just steals some guy's sedan. Well, I can't imagine Undertaker in one of those tiny ass sedans and chases Bull out of the arena. We're meant to think that we're not going to see the Undertaker the rest of the show. After they drive off, we're still in the backstage area. Triple H, Brisco, and Patterson come back into frame, and Triple H is laughing, and he's like, I got to go get ready for my match. And then as Patterson and Brisco are celebrating, we see in the far off distance Crash Holly running towards them, and he attacks Patterson. Brisco runs off. So then Crash goes chasing after Brisco. Cameras back in the arena, inside the arena. And the two of them end up having a match. It's a hardcore championship match, impromptu. Crash Holly versus Gerald Brisco. And like I said, the last match was so hot. Even though this match had weapons, the crowd was checked out. This was the bathroom break. This was the nacho break,
right,
etc. Honestly, I cannot get over Gerald Brisco. I believe he's listed here as like 56 or something, taking bumps.
Oh,
I'm blown away that he's taking bumps. And he even had a moment to do his war dance taunt, which I appreciated. And Patterson eventually runs down, grabs a trash can, goes to hit Crash, of course, misses, hits Brisco, very comical. Crash sneaks in the pin and wins the Hardcore Championship back. And then after the match, Brisco is obviously very pissed. Patterson tries to make amends. They eventually shake hands and make up as Brisco turns his back. Patterson does the suck it. I don't like it. There's tension.
Stooge tension.
Stooge tension. Did you know at this point that you're setting up a match with them? Like, is the King of the Ring lineup coming into fruition yet a little bit? I guess you have the main event. So
yes, it is. And another thing, I'm not exactly sure. It's one of those things how the live crowd, since this is live, what they saw on the screen leading up to how this match transitioned to the arena. That may have been a little funky. You know, sometimes, well, I always love that kind of something happening and then going into the arena live from backstage, and whether it was pre-taped or whatever. There was just something that took that momentum away. I can't remember exactly if sometimes you pull things like that. It's not presented so much to the live audience. Sometimes that's great when they're watching something like, oh, we're seeing something backstage and now something's introduced, but this one may have been tried to be too slick or something. There was something, and at a certain point, like you said, that's the popcorn match. But yeah, there was something about that made people kind of like, what's happening exactly? So they weren't so hot into this, I would say. Little flaw.
Yeah, I guess if they didn't see the backstage, that would make even more sense as to why they were so quiet. Right. But I feel like sometimes just, giving them hardcore spots gets them going. And even that didn't really wake them up.
Yeah, there was something like that. So sorry, guys.
I'll allow it. Triple H is heading to the ring. He's complaining. This isn't fair. After the break, he gets into the ring. Who is his opponent? It's Y2J, Chris Jericho. And they have this is like an 8-minute match. And this is like pay-per-view main event quality match that they crammed into 8 minutes. Like they basically chopped off the first 7 minutes of like build up, stall, build up. They just got right to it. And they got right to the third act of the match as quick as they could. Huge hot flurry from Jericho to start off the match to really get the crowd off their ass and like get into it. And the big spot, I really like this at the end of the match, was Jericho's going for the walls of Jericho. They're sort of by the turnbuckle. Triple H is fighting him off and then kicks both legs off, kind of chucking Jericho off of him. Jericho back first into the turnbuckles and acts like he's like knocked out. So he falls face first right into Triple H's crotch. A little comedy spot. And Triple H is selling. Stephanie gets on the apron and she sneaks the title in as she's distracting the ref. Triple H manages, Jericho stops the title shot. Triple H goes for the title shot.
God damn it, Pasbani, call it a belt. It's a belt when people are getting hit with it.
It's a belt. He does a spinning toe hold kick or whatever. I don't know. I'm confused, but he stops the title shot. Then they knock into the
title
ref.
shot. Wait a minute. No, I have to stop you.
He's the title
because a title shot is when someone has a chance to win the title.
He prevents Triple H from hitting him.
Belt.
Jericho prevents Triple H from hitting Jericho with the title. That's the belt. With the belt.
There we go. Fine. Just say belt.
So then we get the ref bump, and crowd is just nuts. Stephanie comes into the ring. Jericho grabs her by the legs and starts putting her in the walls of Jericho. Crowd is absolutely losing it. Man on woman violence, our favorite thing. And it's at this point that Triple H manages to grab the belt and successfully nails Jericho on the head with a belt shot. Is it a belt shot? Is that allowed?
Belt
shot,
absolutely.
Okay.
Belt shot. Yes.
Title shot is when you get an opportunity.
Yeah.
A belt shot is when you get hit with the actual belt.
Yes.
Okay. Makes sense. And so he does the belt shot. 1, 2, 3. Triple H gets the win. I am a clean finish smart mark. I have complained many a times about dirty finishes. Like, for example, I mean, I didn't complain about it because I'm numb to it, but like the Malenko finish was lazy. But like this is the perfect non-clean finish. Like, this is so good because Triple H is the cowardly heel, like, and whatever. And you want to make Jericho look good and like a worthy challenger. He absolutely made that happen. The crowd believed there could have been a title change in this match, which I think is when you really succeed, is when you have the crowd believing in the babyface. And The only way that Triple H was able to get away was a technicality, which is that the ref was distracted. He was knocked down at this point, allowing his second Stephanie to come in and create the distraction. So I thought this was a great finish. This was a great match. I love this.
It was great. I absolutely agree. And also, it was one of those things where, like, okay, the three most destructive forces are on a collision for, blah, blah, blah. What's going to happen? And then it was almost like, oh my God, this could just throw a wrench in everything. Are you, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
you get, and the way, the good thing about the Attitude Era and at this point was like, I could see this happening. You know what I mean? Because you had those three. It's like, what better than to like totally take the focus to someone else? But it didn't happen. But ultimately, you're also like servicing Jericho to like, remember, this guy's right there. And then that's also smart for like, oh, right after, who, if someone were to, just the potential things happen. Oh, if someone wins a King of the Ring, then like, oh, Jericho's right there, so good piece of business. Very good.
Yeah, this really made Jericho look strong and like he's like pushing into that upper card.
Yeah.
I feel like him and the Dudleys, you guys have really done a good job of elevating them to be in the peripheral of the main event picture. They're not quite in there, but they're hanging out. They're invited to the party.
Without a doubt.
We have Chris Benoit against Matt Hardy. This is a continuation of an angle started on SmackDown where Benoit defeated Jeff Hardy and then got a little too cocky after and like gave him a belt shot. So now Matt's here for revenge. And again, this match suffered a similar fate to the Crash Holly match, which is that the previous match was so hot, such a peak that the crowd had to come down. And so they weren't really like, since this was like mat wrestling and this isn't the main event story, they weren't as engaged, but this was a good match. This wasn't like at no fault of the wrestlers, like they could only do so much. And it was a good match.
A lot of wrestling on this show, actually.
Yeah. You're right. Yeah. What is this, SmackDown? I like the finish, which is Matt going for a twist of fate. Benoit counters into the crossface, gets the win. He won't let go. And then Jeff Hardy runs down to save his brother. And then Jeff gets a belt shot again. Edge and Christian are watching this backstage on the monitor, and they mock the Hardys. And Christian says he's going to advance in the King of the Ring tournament since Jeff made the mistake of coming out. So then immediately after, we have Christian against Jeff Hardy in one of these qualifying matches. And Christian tries to end the match quick. Jeff keeps fighting back. Finish sees Christian hitting a superplex. And as his legs are in the air, Jeff hooks his legs, gets a cradle, and steals the victory.
Nice.
Very fun way for Jeff to win the match. After this, we get the weekly King of the Ring qualifiers recap. We find out who qualified on Sunday Night Heat. And there's been a lot of qualifiers. I believe, you're going to have 32 competitors total, but I've yet to see a bracket. Give me a bracket, baby.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I agree.
I'm assuming you guys haven't figured out who's losing to whomst.
Yeah. And also, frankly, it's one of those things that like, hey, shouldn't there be a bracket? Yeah. Where's the bracket? Oh, we didn't. Well, you need to tell us. Just, a lot of things fall through the cracks.
Yeah. It's a busy time of year, I guess.
Yeah, it is. Well, yeah.
It's main event time. The entire McMahon-Helmsley faction comes out. And Vince cuts a short promo about how they're going to be victorious at King of the Ring. He refers to Shane as the King of Sting. And says if Kane doesn't destroy The Rock, you will see the ugliest creature in the history of mankind. I was like, oh, Mankind's coming back? No, that's not what he meant. And Kane is so pissed, kicks the locker room door off of its hinges. And there was like this weird edit after he did it. I'm assuming this is just on the network. And it cut to the Big Show Chef Boyardee commercial, and then we're right back to the show. I don't kind of get what that was going on there, but I'm assuming that's just the network. And so it's the main event, Kane versus The Rock, no holds barred match. The match immediately rolls to the outside. Action is hot. Crowd is awake once again. What a journey you've taken this crowd on. And I will say, like, sometimes I feel these Raws, people don't get their money's worth. This is an episode of Raw where the crowd absolutely got their money's worth. You got to see everyone you wanted to see.
Yeah.
In good action. The Rock goes for the people's elbow. He does the thing. He runs the ropes. As he's about to land the elbow, Kane sits up. So the Rock just kicks him and then finishes the elbow. Very fun spot. Triple H gets on the apron, distracts the ref. Momentum changes, goes back and forth. All this builds up to all of a sudden on the TV. We have for the first time in what feels like 6 months at least, GTV. It's back. Just because you needed a security cam angle for this. And it's behind the scenes footage of Pat Patterson and Gerald Brisco in a locker room. And they have the photograph, which has just been developed. And they open it and they're freaking out because you don't see anything. You don't see Kane's face. And they're like, well, if Kane learns about this, he's never going to attack The Rock. Why would he do our bidding? Well, don't worry. We won't tell him. We won't tell anybody. This news won't leave this room. And of course, it has left the room. It's being broadcast on national television. And in a pretty comical moment, you see Kane and The Rock in the ring looking at the screen, looking at each other, looking at the screen, being like, yeah, we don't got to beat each other up anymore. And then the Undertaker's music hits, and now it's a party. Now the crowd is super hot again. It's a big schmaz, a big brawl. And what I like is you even brought the Dudleys back in. Dudleys bring a table. Just them hanging out with Undertaker, Rock, and Kane, I feel really elevates them. And the show closing angle couldn't be cooler. It's Triple H circled by Kane, Rock, and Undertaker. Each one gives him a punch, a kick. He's like going around. And then finally, it ends with both Kane and Undertaker giving Triple H a massive double choke slam through a table. And that's how the show kind of ends. Mwah!
Yeah.
Perfect ending. Great show. Great episode. Very easy to watch.
And that final set piece, if you will, of Triple H selling like that was great. And it was one of those things too, where like, man, I had a lot of doubts about like, gosh, this whole picture, and then it's so convoluted, but it's just like the crowd was so hot it didn't matter. And sometimes you get to that point, who cares? You just want to get to that point of like but really when you break it down, it's kind of like, wait, what? You can also imagine. Yeah,
I wanted to ask, like, I remember you saying in the past that you didn't like GTV as a bit. You didn't think it was necessary. How did you feel that they kind of brought it back only to have this excuse to
it's one of those things where like the clock is ticking, the idea is out there, and then you just become painted into a corner. Like, well, why would, like you said, like, well, why would Kane fight? And then why would he stop? And like, how about there's a picture of his face? I don't know about that. Like, well, who cares if he shows his face? Is that's on them? I don't know, but that we're gonna go with that. Okay, we're going to that. How do we problem solve that? Well, it comes on the screen? You know what I mean? You got to realize there's so many.
Totally get it.
Pitches
yeah.
and idea and like, then bring what would it be? We'll just show it. Like, why would they? Well, it's the thing we talked about before. What camera's motivated anyway? Oh, but this is kind of extra. I don't know. Let bring fine. Just clock's ticking. So, and again, it's one of those things where like, it worked. It worked because the crowd was so hot, and you got to that point of Triple H, multi-selling to everyone, and the place went bonkers. So after, you could go back. My analogy, it's like a football game. Like, oh my God, that play broke down when and we were supposed to do this, but he wasn't there. But the quarterback rolled around, and this happened, and then he threw it, and it was like a last-minute touchdown. Incredible. So like the locker rooms, yeah, we won. That's incredible. Now you were supposed to do this, and this didn't really work, but it didn't matter. The play, they pulled it off. Mm-hmm. So it's an odd thing where your post-mortem meetings sometimes are like, it's like that in a lot of shows, like whatever. If you worked at like on Saturday Night Live, you'd be like, that was a good bit that was written good. So-and-so lost their place and started like looking for the cue cards. And then like, oh, the momentum just took out of it. The whole thing went to shit. So after you could be like, that was not well written. Well, other things are like, so it just the charisma and the machine just overtook what I thought was like pretty dicey. And even then, like this whole Kane face thing, like, you know, whatever, not baby face, Kane burned face thing, whatever. You're just so happy that like in that moment, like, oh God, they're looking, there's the picture, like what's happening? It does. Oh, Triple H is selling. It's just the tidal wave of charisma, momentum, smooths over all the things that you think are bad or whatever, you know what I mean? And that's always like that. And after a show, if somehow it was perceived as like, oh, that audience was flat, this, that, the other, then people chime in from the studio like, yeah, this wasn't good and that wasn't good. But, you know, when it's just hot like this, who cares, you know? It's
I hear it. Yeah, like it's hard. Like, how could you really complain with the audience reaction like that? And also, I think it should be noted that WCW at this moment is in a complete free fall. Like the night before, Goldberg, their top babyface, turned heel in one of the dumbest angles I ever remember. And on top of it, which like I remember not even buying, like, oh, who wants this? And then I believe in a day or two on Thunder, he's gonna punch through a glass window of a car and like tear up his arm so much that he's going to be out for like 6 months. So they're right about to lose their top guy. So like your competition couldn't be further away from you. Like there's no one chasing you. It's only you guys. Like you have such a lead here. And you, for the most part, I feel like you guys are putting on quality programming. So there's less of an impetus to figure out these kinks, I think.
Yeah, and part of that is it's, you know, when you really look at it, it's kind of unfair in the sense that like they're scrambling. They've got to do everything. And people are chasing quarter-hour ratings and like, oh, we need big impact. We need big impact. Oh, turn Goldberg heel. You know, they're just like, it's called hot-shotting, like anything, you know. And then also the narrative, if you will, the public narrative starts to lead into it where fans are like, WWF is up, WCW stinks, and that just leads into everything, and it just that, you know, that makes it true, you know. So it's like it's a tough thing, you know. It's like it is like a football team that's like, oh my God, they had a good plan and that team always loses, something always happens. There's an overall psychological thing that happens, you know, and it kind of really leaks into the performance, where WWF here is like, hey, there's some things in this storyline that aren't great, or things are last minute, or this and that. Doesn't matter. We'll pull it off. Everyone's, you know, behind it. You know, everything works. That's the psychological fuel. Whereas WCW, and you know, and I feel bad for, you know, performers there, because when we come down to it, it isn't just like superior performers here, inferior there. It's just like they're scrambling, and then like, oh, everything we try to do is like bad, and then also when there's this other horrible psychological thing to WCW at the time, like, whoa, I can't wait for my contract to be up. Maybe I can go over there, and you know, all this stuff. So it's really fascinating how it's all playing out. But you're right.
Yeah, that's a great point too. And I always felt like with WWF, there's like, possibly because of the way the contracts were structured, where you get bonuses and stuff based on how much you work. There was more, like you said, of a team effort, like a team vibe, like we're all doing this together. Whereas in WCW, it felt like everyone was out for themselves. Nobody cared about the greater good.
And the biggest fuel for that, frankly, is, wow, we're experiencing and have been experiencing the greatest ratings in cable TV history, in wrestling history. Everywhere sold out. You know, that's the fuel. Again, sold out, crowd hot. You know, so that doesn't, you know, people have a tendency to be like, oh, well, you know, why should you bite the bullet for this? Why should you do this? Because I want to be on the, you know, on the winning team, so to speak. But yeah.
I mean, to your point, the Radicals, I remember they gave interviews like a few weeks or months after they joined WWE, and they basically said exactly what you said. Like, it's such a different environment. Everyone cares. Everyone wants to put on a good show.
Yeah.
And I'm like motivated to come to work, whereas I dreaded going to work in WCW. So I think that like the atmosphere in the locker room is a big deal too, as to get out the best performances from the wrestlers.
Without a doubt. Yeah.
Well, that's great. I think we did it. I think we learned a lot here.
We did it. Yes.
And we're only a few shows away from King of the Ring. I'm very excited to see how the rest of the card fills out and how you book a tournament in the year 2000. Because I feel tournaments are pretty hard to book in general. And I know Vince isn't the biggest fan of them because he likes to give the fans their card before they're watching the pay-per-view, but you can't quite do that with the tournament.
Yeah, I disagree. I love tournaments. I think they can breed everything too. It's just, how they're done, it's just that, yeah.
Yeah, you could tell unique stories with having someone wrestle 3 times in a night or whatever.
But absolutely. But sometimes you're like, tournament, yuck. Okay. There we have that,
So we won't be yucking at all. We will be yucking. Am I right? Am I right, folks?
Whoa,
so
brilliant.
Tune in next time on Tales from the Attitude Era.